My name is Debbie Khan. I was born on the 14th of September 1964. It's St Andrews in Scotland. Not long after I was born, we moved to the other end of the country, so we moved down to Devon. I lived there for a while. My sister, I think, was born when we lived in Devon. She's about 17, 18 months younger than me. My father was a pilot in the RAF. He was a flying instructor and he did a lot of display flying. He's half English, half Dutch. My mother comes from South Africa. She was a radiographer, and then my family moved abroad. When I was very small, I can remember one of my first memories is going to Sunday school, and I must have been about 3 or 4. So obviously my parents must have taken me, I presume. I didn't get there by myself. And then when we lived in Germany, I remember that I used to go to a lot of the youth clubs that were run by the padres, they were. So obviously I was involved in things then. I remember doing a sponsored silence when I was younger and making things in the church. And then we moved to this country, I think, when I was about 9. My father was stationed at Coningsby, and we moved to a village called Lessingham, which is near Sleaford. It's in Lincolnshire. My teacher at school, my primary school teacher was called Mrs. Williamson, and she was married to the vicar in Lessingham. And I remember her quite a lot. She's probably, I think, one of my best teachers. She helped me with a lot of things that I was going through at school, and I used to speak to her a lot. And her husband was the vicar at the local church, and I was active at the church. I was in the choir, used to sing in the choir. I was in church maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Used to go and watch the bell ringers, and I can remember being confirmed and going to confirmation classes. So I was very religious when I was younger, and then that all changed when I went to school. I knew I was going to go to boarding school when I was at 11. I went off to boarding school and shared a room with another 7 girls. And I can remember lying in bed and they'd all be talking after lights out, and they'd all be chatting about all kinds of things, boys and records and makeup and all this kind of thing. And I used to do my prayers. There was a girl in my dorm at school. I'm not sure if it was in my first or second year at boarding school, so I must have been about 12 or 13, I think. Most of us were there because our parents were either in the armed forces or working in the oil fields abroad. So we all knew we were going to go to boarding school, but this one particular girl in my room, her father was a GP, and she used to cry. She used to cry all the time. It used to drive us mad. However, the matron, who was a person who used to sew kneelers for the church, she would sing very loudly in church. If we were listening to the radio with headphones in church, we'd get a smack around the back of the head and told to shut up, you know, all this kind of thing. She turned around and said to this young girl, "I can see why your parents wanted to put you at boarding school." And whoa, you don't do things like that. And that was the moment, I think, that things changed for me, and I just thought, this is not the path that I want to be on. If this is Christian values, you can stuff them, basically. And I think a lot of people nowadays, well, a lot of people, young people, have fairly strong ideals, and the reason that a lot of people leave mainstream religions is because they are fairly principled and they do have very strong ideals. When they see these people who are supposed to be Christian or Muslim or Jewish, whatever their faith may be, as older people behaving in a way that is at odds with what the child believes, that's when people lose the plot, basically, and turn away from religion. And I don't think that in any way is the fault of religion. I think that's the fault of the people who are practicing the religion, and it's down to us to dispel those myths and to try and bring about a better understanding. And the only way people are going to understand about the religion is if they see people who are so-called Muslims or Christians or Jews actually practicing that religion in the way that they should do. Started smoking, getting interested in boys, all the usual things, I think, that, you know, hanging around, waiting to see if boys would come past, sitting on the wall and stuff at school. Going out of my way to be in situations where I'd be with them. Buying bottles of pomade from the local spa on a Sunday afternoon, going out and getting absolutely slaughtered with maybe a few of my friends, and then buying, smoking consulate cigarettes, buying a packet of extra strong mints, and making sure that they didn't know that we'd been smoking and stuff. And I think I kind of obviously went off the rails for a while, and then when I was a little bit older, I took up with somebody that maybe I shouldn't have taken up with, and I was doing a lot of things I shouldn't have been doing, working in pubs and clubs and things like that. And then my mum said to me, you know, basically you need to look at your lifestyle and what you're doing. And I thought, well, I can't carry on doing this forever, working in pubs and clubs, because obviously there's a lot of people who aren't that old working there. And she suggested that I would enjoy working in a hospital setting. So I applied for a job and was accepted. Started working in a cardiology department at the Leicester Royal Infirmary. And I did my training while I was in post. So I did my training there in all kinds of different aspects of physiology. I studied it. And then I worked at the Royal Infirmary for a couple of years, as I say, in the field of cardiology. And then a job came up at the Leicester General Hospital, which was to do with sleep and sleep medicine, and I decided to apply. I work in a sleep lab at the Leicester General Hospital. I've been there for over 20 years. And when you work at night, obviously, you have a bit of a rapport with the patients. You start chatting to them, and they've told me lots of experience of things that have happened with them at night. Hallucinations and sleep paralysis, all that kind of thing. But they tell me a bit about their dreams, and then a few years ago I started to have some very strange dreams as well. This is, I think, probably the dream that caused my reversion. I was in a hotel and I went to the desk at the front. There was a lady at the desk dressed smartly with the receptionist uniform on, little name badge. She got long dark hair, I remember, and I said to her, "Can you please tell me how to get to this particular room?" I gave her the directions, and I gave her the piece of paper, and she gave it back to me. She said, "Oh, that room it's at the top of the hotel, it's on the top floor. The lifts are just over there." So they were to her right, my left. You go in the lift and you can get up to the top floor. So I went in the lift, pressed the button, off I went. But every time I got out, I came to rooms, and the rooms were full of people, but they weren't where I wanted to be, and I couldn't go any further than the bit that I got to. The stairs would end there in these rooms. So I wasn't getting to where I needed to be, but obviously it was there. It was the hotel, it was the top floor, they must know. So then I thought about it, and I thought, oh, how do I get to this room? And I thought, oh, I know what I'll do. I went back down to the kitchen, and sure enough, there were quite a few people in there, and I said, "Excuse me, I need to get to this room. Can you tell me how to get there?" And they said, "Oh, yes, it's fine." So this gentleman, he said to me, "Yes, I can show you." He showed me a doorway where there was a set of stairs, and he said, "Just, there you go. Off you go, up the stairs." So to my mind, I think this means that basically, obviously, the room at the top is obviously closeness to Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I think that obviously we search for things and they're not really what we want. But to my mind, the people in the kitchen, the people who were the workers, the people who were humble, they knew how to get there. I started to have some very strange feelings in my chest, I think it was, initially. And obviously I can feel it now. And what happened was that I was speaking to a lady from Canada, and I thought, at the time I thought I had cancer. We have a family history of cancer. My father died from stomach cancer. His mother, she died from cancer not long after I'd been at her house, so I'd seen it firsthand. And then my father died from cancer. His brothers have died from cancer, and obviously I was a single parent. So I was very, very concerned. My mother lives in another country. I have one sister only, and she lives in Manchester. So I was very, very worried. And it's one of those things that you know that you have to deal with, but when you've got other things to think about, like the children, my health was on the back burner. And I remember going to my doctor, and he gave me a little note and told me to take it to the ultrasound department at my hospital. But I didn't want to go because I didn't want to know. It was easier not knowing. And I started talking to a lady on MSN, I think it was, about the feelings that I was having, and I'd been speaking to her about dreams anyway. And she told me to read a surah in the Quran, which was the one on the expansion of the, sorry, I always get like this when I talk about, on expansion of the breast. And it just, it explained so much. It was like, whoa, you know, why didn't I know about this before? So, and I just knew that everything that I'd been feeling, everything that I'd been thinking and wondering about was all explained in this one verse from the Quran. I didn't really know anything about Muslims, to be honest. I mean, only what I saw on the television. I thought they were all a bunch of raving terrorists, to be honest, you know. When I had this, I remember the experience that I had, and I found the surah on the web and I read it. Obviously I got very upset, and I assumed when I read it that all Muslim people must feel this way, and I wanted to be Muslim there and then. I wanted to go and speak to Muslims and go and see some Muslims and be one of them and ask them. I had so many questions about all these things that I'd been experiencing, and why does it happen, and how does it happen, and how does it work. I thought the best thing to do would be to go and speak to some Muslims. So I jumped in the car, impetuous and impatient as I am, and I drove into Leicester. And I remember going to a mosque, and the people coming out, I knew, you know, that they would be coming out from doing prayers and stuff. Obviously, as I say, I live in the Leicester area. So I thought, great, okay, Muslims, haha, brilliant. So I went up and I went into the mosque. I know that you have to take your shoes off. I know you have to be respectful, you have to be covered. And I was told to get out. So then I remember these men all coming out, and I was going up to them, and of course they didn't want to speak to me. And in the end I found one man who gave me a telephone number, and he said that his son was going to this person for tuition, and he gave me the telephone number. But the person to whom I spoke didn't really want to know. So I thought, okay then. So I got back in my car and I drove around the Highfields area of Leicester, and every time I went past a mosque, my chest would feel like my ribs wanted to snap. It was just so weird, the feeling in my chest. So but I didn't know what to do. I was hysterical, I was babbling, and I just thought that people would I'd see these people and I'd want to go and speak to them, but then I didn't know what to say. So obviously when I thought, this is ridiculous, you know, I need to calm down, and I got in my car and I drove home again. This is the hospital where I work at. I've worked here for nearly 25 years, I think, maybe in May. I read the verse from the Quran, and obviously it was a bit like a revelation, and I knew that I wanted to be Muslim, but I didn't really know how to go about it because I assumed, obviously in Christianity, I know that I was christened, and then when I wanted to become a fully fledged Christian, I had to go and be confirmed. So there were confirmation classes. I understood a bit more about my religion, I hoped. But I didn't know how to become Muslim. So I didn't know what to do. I thought there was some kind of classes, some course you needed to go on to understand a bit more about the religion, and nobody seemed to be willing or able to give me the answers that I needed. At the time, so I didn't really know what to do. I just knew that I wanted to be Muslim, and I was unhappy because I wasn't Muslim. So what I did eventually was, we have imams that work here at the hospital, and I went to see the imam in the end because I didn't know what else to do. And I explained that I wanted to become Muslim and I didn't know how to go about it. And he said that I could take my Shahada in front of him. I was a little bit taken aback because I didn't realise it would be so easy. So he said I could take my Shahada there and then in front of him, and that's what I did. And I can't even remember, I don't have a certificate, I don't know what day I did it. Time of the year, I know it had been snowing and it was a nice sunny day, and I think it was early in the year, but apart from that I don't really know. I lost a lot of friends when I became Muslim. I lost all of my friends really, apart from one person in the village. I've got friends who don't live in the village, but as regards the village where I live, I've got one friend now who I think she knows I'm Muslim. My neighbours, they don't know I'm Muslim. I get on very well with my neighbours, all of my neighbours. I know I'm on first name terms with them all, but they don't know I'm Muslim. And because my children are mixed race, and we live in a village, I can remember a few years ago one of my friends who I've lost when I became Muslim was talking about people who are not English living in the village, and I remember saying to her, well, my children are only half English, and she said, yes, but you know, we know you, it's different. And I remember saying at the time, well, it's no different at all, it's exactly the same thing. So because of that, my children do a lot of activities and stuff outside of school, and they play rugby, and I don't wear hijab when I go to rugby club or anything like that, because I think it's hard enough with their colour anyway, living in the village and living around here. So I really don't want their friends to be taking the mickey out of them or telling their parents. The friends of the children who come here, they all know I'm Muslim. You know, if my bedroom door's shut, it's mum's doing her prayers. You don't talk, you don't bang on the door, you don't ask her for anything when she's busy doing her prayers. So all their friends know. It's just that I don't think they tell their parents. People at work will say to me, I think that they were a bit taken aback at first, but I've pointed out the fact that I'm still me. I'm exactly the same person that I was. I'm just a new, improved version of me. I have had some comments even last week about me wearing hijab, and that was from people that I thought I knew and have worked many years with. And even now, even though I reverted about 3 years ago, they still are very anti me wearing hijab. But that's for them to deal with, isn't it? You know, that's for those people to sort out and deal with. When you revert to Islam, any information is better than no information at all. So, as a lot of people do, I turned to Facebook, and I met through Facebook a Muslim sister from Jordan, and I remember her saying to me she wanted to be Oprah Winfrey, And I said, why? And she said, well, she's got lots of money and, you know, so she makes a difference to other people. And I remember saying to her, you know, Sahar, you don't really need to have money to make a difference. You can make a difference. You don't know how you affect other people, you know, what a profound effect you may have on somebody's life. As I said to you earlier on, the lady who said to me, said to the young girl in my dorm, you know, it's no wonder you're here at boarding school. Now, obviously that changed the way I looked at things for a long time. So anything that you say or do, even though it's only it can be just one sentence, but that could change somebody else's life. So we started a group on Facebook. It is called Scattered Pearls. So it's to try and get people to look at things probably from a spiritual point of view. I don't like anybody in there who's having a go at anybody else for their beliefs, because I think your beliefs are your beliefs, you know. And who's to say, obviously everybody's perception is different, so who's to say, you know, we all know one of the biggest sins in Islam is to be judgmental. And if you think about it logically, if you judge somebody, you're judging something that Allah created, so therefore you're judging him. You're saying, hey, you know, my judgment is as good as yours. And obviously we don't know everything. They always say that Allah knows the best. And I think that when I think about this, Allah knows the best, I think, yeah, maybe he does, you know. So hopefully, inshallah, as I go through life, I'll come to understand that phrase a bit more. So if you're told to do something, there has to be a good reason for it. So this is why I don't like to be judgmental. And there are quite a few people in the group who have reverted as a result of the group, which is, inshallah, it's a good thing. To me, Islam literally means submission to the will of Allah. So basically, it's doing everything to please Him. With Islam, obviously, you know, you do your prayers. If it's time for prayers, you stop, you do your prayers. People will do prayers anywhere. And you don't have to go to the mosque to worship. You do worship where you want to. And I think the thing is with us, Islam, you have this, the connection is there all the time. You can have your continuous dialogue. So if you have a connection with Allah all the time, and He's ever present, then you have to appreciate that everything you think, everything you say, everything you do has to reflect the fact that He is ever present and that He is watching you, you know. So you have to be very, think before you say things, before you act. And so if you have Islam as a faith, everything that your whole life, your faith reflects the way you conduct yourself. And therefore it comes through in the way that you conduct yourself in regard to other people and regard for yourself. And I think you need to have personal dignity and conduct yourself that way always. So when I put my hijab on, I'm ambassador for Islam. So that has to be reflected in, I mean, you know, if people see me walking around and I'm like, the way I'm dressed, or I don't know, if I'm shouting or I'm laughing or I'm loud or I'm covered in makeup or, you know, got rings and jewellery dripping everywhere, I don't think that's a very good advert for my faith.